We know from quantitative research from the past few years that gender inequality is actually linked to the onset of civil war violence. And so gender inequality is generally a strong predictor of conflict and of armed violence. Now, what we don't know is how this plays out on the micro level, because this is a correlation that we found for the state level. But what does that actually mean for people, for communities, for different areas in a conflict environment?
My experience was in Aceh. Aceh was a region, Muslim there. And during the occupation of the military, it was women who become the ones who help the husband not to be controlled by the military. Because when they go out from the house, for example, the men, they always, control. They have to show their identity card, for example. But when they go with women, so they escaped from this obligation. But I think when we talk about gender, we cannot just talking about women, because men also, they contribute to the peace building process in the society. And we see, for example, in Aceh, in the world, for example, we only talk about the elite men who solve the conflict. But how about the small people in the village? They also contribute to the conflict resolution. They try to prevent, for example, conflict and try to create peace building by their own way. So I think we need to consider this potential efforts by the small people in the village.
Let me tell you about the story of woman in one village named Poka in Ambon, where back in 1999, people in Ambon generally has been caught into conflict based on religion, Muslim and Christian, something like that. But it is very interesting in Poka, where women, when they have been given opportunity to do something, they are able to do their local management at the local level in their village. And the power that they have is not based on their identity as Muslim or Christian, but based as women. They have a very strong sense of women of Poka, the name of the village. With that sense of identity, then they were able to help other women across the religion line. For example, helping them to help with the aids when they need, for example, food. Then one group will help another group of women, and when one women have gotten sick in IDP's camp, then the other women will come to visit her, something like that. So it is very nice story where women are able to do local management conflict, at the same time also bring peace, even though still limited among women, not yet into other group of youth or group of men. But I think that's an evidence where women have kind of gender equality and opportunity, they can do something good.
And the broader picture here is, of course, international peace building. So what we want to find out is how do women and men's peace building and violence prevention efforts contribute to long-term sustainable peace building. Oftentimes, even when you have a peace agreement, that does not mean that violence stops automatically on the ground. So you do have to get women and men involved in violence prevention and peace building efforts. And women groups are often on the forefront, and they are the actors who often mobilize in terms of civil society activism, because they want to protect themselves, their families, their children. They want to make sure that their children can go to school, that they have food on the table, and so on. And this is very much on the micro level. And we do ask, how do we scale this up, basically? What does that mean for international peace building efforts?
Women have engaged in peace building through the informal space in Nigeria. We haven't seen a lot of women engaged in the formal space in peace building. And in the informal space, we've seen women organize across religion, across faith. We've seen women come together across different ethnic groups to build peace. And basically, I think this is because of the growing tension, both politically, religiously, and the conflict that is growing in the country. So women have found it very necessary to bring to the table their skills as peace builders, even though we have to acknowledge that there are different groups of women. Women are not homogeneous group. So when we talk about women as peace builders, we also have to be mindful of the fact that we have women who are not peace builders as well.
some of the research that's really fascinated me has been looking at masculinities in peace building. So men are everywhere in conflict situations and peace building situations, as soldiers, as politicians, as peacekeepers, as peacemakers, as militia, as guerrillas, as civilians, as refugees, but often they're not, or their gender is invisible. They're not thought of as men, and there's relatively little research on how the way that men are expected to be men, how men themselves expected to be as men, how their wives, their mothers, their daughters expect them to be men, or how other men expect them to be as men in a situation, how that impacts on conflict and peace building.
In the policy world, there is a consensus that gender mainstreaming is part of UN peace building by now. But in practice, we know still very little about how to do this actually. There is not enough research at the moment that would tell us how gender mainstreaming works in the post-conflict environment. And oftentimes also women's needs, women's rights to political participation and women's security needs in general are often put last, basically, when it comes to the priorities of implementing policies in the post-conflict environment.
But when we talk about the peace at the national level, at the elite level, women are left behind. They have not been recognized as part of the parties, so that they should be involved and involved in the peace agreement. They are not there. They were not there at the elite level, yeah. But at the grassroots, the role of women are very obvious actually. Yeah. They do very good participation at the local level.
Yes, and one of the good example is the Aceh Agreement. Aceh Agreement was signed by different parts
and discussed by men.
But there is also one woman, for example, involved, but she's never been taken into account as becoming part of this agreement process. So this is a thing with this, according to me, a pity for the international effort to build a peace building process.
I think one of the other dangers often is that in trying to broaden the field of working on gender to look at men as well as women, is that the focus then can easily shift just to men. And it's important to make sure that we keep women's empowerment, gender equality on the table while working also with men, and also making sure that men see the value in having a more gender equal society and a more peaceful society.
So this project seeks to develop policy recommendations on how can we make peace building more gender sensitive. So the goal of our research in Indonesia and Nigeria is to develop policy recommendations on gender sensitive peace building. Thank you.